Shalom, Hebrews. This Israel been Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. Is Israel been Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. And what I want to show Hebrews is that we're going to have to turn the heat up. We're going to have to turn the heat up on these folks that don't believe that we Hebrews, because we got the correct history now. You know, the Israelite Brotherhood been had the correct history. It's just getting the message out to you other Hebrews so you can have correct history to show the people that's in doubt about our Israelite heritage. So you Hebrews need to turn the heat up on the enemies, because it's some history in the Bible that wasn't recorded with world history during the Babylonian wars, when the whole Hebrew nation, besides maybe like a 1%, was taken to Babylon, but that the 99%, the millions, ran into Africa to live. It's a known fact that Egypt is the Sahara. Egypt is the Sahara, and if you look at any map of Egypt, you're gonna see that Egypt is the Sahara. And ain't nothing can change that. So when they be slick calling us sub-Saharians and all of those stuff, they just, word play, And it's like, we Hebrews need to turn the heat up on these folks, because we got them now. It ain't no way in the world, in this world that they can say that the Hebrews didn't run into Africa. You see what I'm saying? They cannot say that. They cannot say that. The only thing that they can say is they don't know what happened to the Hebrews after they went into Africa. But of course they do, because the people we abandon our heritage to is slick responsible for our enslavement, our brainwashing and education, and being put in the present situation that we in now, because they knew the curses in detail and knew certain things we will be vulnerable for, and certain things that we wouldn't have no defense against, because we wasn't worshiping the Creator. We had abandoned the covenant. So it's like we was the most weakest people on the whole face of the earth. If they'd have went and tried to grab some other folks, the other folks would have put up a struggle and would have fought. You know what I'm saying? That's like the natives. They tried to enslave them natives. Them natives dipped in and fought and rebelled against, the slavery that them folks tried to put down on them. Even though some of them, got enslaved, just a few of them. But it's kind of hard to enslave them in their land. But anyway, Hebrews, we have some history that wasn't recorded. We have some history that was left out of world history. You see, the people who would have possibly recorded what happened to us, they got destroyed. That's like the Egyptians. The Egyptians got destroyed. The people before the civilization before the Egyptians that we interacted with, the Assyrians, they got destroyed in 612 BC by the Scythians. That's the code name for Ashkenazi in history. If you go look up the word Scythian and Ashkenazi, you will see that the Scythians and the Ashkenazi are the same people, and they slick with wording and how they try to explain who they are. They'll throw all kind of double meanings and words and stuff to throw you off, because they don't like to connect themselves to any outside history outside the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Outside the Israelite heritage. Because if you can connect them to some history outside the Tanakh history, then it'll show that they ain't no Hebrews. And we able to do that now real easily. The Israelite Brotherhood able to show that both groups that are claiming Israelite heritage are not the Hebrews. It's like, the chief rabbinic rabbis for the Jews is one gonna be for Ashkenaz. I think his name David Liu. You know what I'm saying? It's the Ashkenazi rabbi. You know what I'm saying? I show you how Ashkenazi got our heritage during the Babylonian wars. And then that's the other Sephardi Jew. I had some pictures of him. He real evil and wicked, and he called us all kind of bad names and stuff. And he gonna be one of the ones that we abandon our heritage to. I'm gonna make a video separate showing they pictures and, you know, showing who they are. But, you know, the Sephardi groups and the Ashkenazi groups, we can show positively, certainly with 100% accuracy, that, you know, when they come into the Israelite heritage, and that Ashkenazi and the Sephardis are not the Israelites. You know, I know some Hebrews been fooled by the Sephardis or think that we got some type of kinness, a closeness to them, but that's all false. You know, that's all false. And you know, the Sephardis have pigmentation. You know, pigmentations varies. You know, it depends on who they mixed up with, or, you know, the lands that they went to, that they mixed up with some of the people. So, you know, they gonna look all kind of different ways, and that's where that word Semitic come in. They'll try to trick you and make you think that Semitic is a short term for Shemitic, and that, you know, when somebody be against the Semites, they try to connect that as to being against Shem, but that's not true. You know, when a person is against the Semites or the Semitic people, it's that they are against that ancient mixed breed that try to mix and breed with everybody, mix everybody up. So some ethnic groups that ain't thoroughly mixed, like the Amorite Sephardis, who kind of mix with all the people, all the tribes in the Bible, all of our ancient enemies that kind of like disappeared, and they become one with the Sephardi Jews. You know, the Sephardi Jews ain't nothing but Amorites. And they are Amorites because they come from Babylon, and they are responsible for Babylon's history. I got, you know, plenty of videos going into this showing how the Sephardi groups are Amorites. And when we abandon our heritage for the Egyptian Sahar religion, the African religions, the Camite, Mizraim religions, when we abandon our heritage for them, we left our heritage in the hand of the Babylonian scribes, the Sephardis, who was Amorites. You see, they was Amorites. And ain't nothing gonna change that. You know, they ain't gonna tell you this. That's one thing you can count on, that they ain't gonna tell you this. That's why they be trying to keep the Hebrew Israelites blind and confused and throw all kind of old wicked stuff out to keep you off their trail and who they are. You see, the more wickedness that they put out, the more, you know, power that they have over the people when the people accept that wickedness, and that push you farther away from understanding the Israelite heritage. You see what I'm saying? Them folks cold. You know, they real cold. But that's like, you know, the Amorites. The Amorites are Sephardims. The people from Sippar, are the founders of Babylon's God's history. You know, they trying to slick change that too, because it seemed like soon as I get on some history and start explaining it, not too long they'll come back and try to switch some stuff up. You know, but it's no way possible that they can't say that they ain't Amorites, you know, because they are from Sephardim, and Sephardim is the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. Sephardic gonna be the Sephardis that mix with the Ashkenazi and Europe and so forth, and the Sephardim's gonna be like really the pure Edomites, the pure Jewish Edomites. You know, those like the Arabs mixed with the Sephardi Jews are called Sephardims, or Jews in Arabic countries that, you know, then converted or raised in Judaism. You know, those are going to be the Sephardims, and those are Edomites. You know, I got videos covering all this, and they're all Canaanites. They're Canaanites, and that's like that word Jew. You know that word Jew? You know that word Jew means Jebusite. Jebusite. Jebusite are Amorites. You know, the Amorites was the chief people in our land that went all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, they went all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah, and those are the people that the Creator was finna destroy, and then they scattered and went into the mountains and stuff. And then, you know, when we eventually got the covenant, that was one of our first jobs and first duty, was to get rid of the Amorite culture. And it's like the culture, the covenant that we got wasn't nothing but a new culture. The new culture to extinguish the Amorite culture, which would have led to the destruction of the Egyptian culture. The culture that we got from the Creator would have destroyed the whole Mesopotamian area's culture, you know, because if we did the covenant right in the middle in Jerusalem and the promised land where we were, that was a previous land that the Amorites held, you know, with their belief system, and if we would have put their lights out like the Creator told us, ain't none of this wickedness that's going on today will be going on today. None of this wickedness that's going on today will be going on today, because the people who are behind the wickedness today are the people that we abandon our heritage to. And it's like they've been given a green light to be wicked too, because the people look at them as the chosen people. You see, the people look at them, the world look at them as the chosen people, and they was real slick doing back in the days when they created the missionaries. You know, it's like the Christian church was created for proxy wars. You know, all the religions, you know, the ones that so-called follow behind Judaism was created for proxy wars. You know what I'm saying? They fought themselves. You know, they fought through the religions. You know, in the religions you can establish a whole culture, dominance, and everything. You know, it's like I got a video explaining how those Sephardi's, the Amorites, are responsible for the whole Western civilization. This whole Western civilization can be traced all the way back to Babylon, and I can show in history how Babylon and Egypt corresponded. And matter of fact, they starting to show that Egypt had some Mesopotamian kings and people that was descended from Mesopotamia, from Babylon and so forth, and places like that. You know, it's a known fact that the Hamites are the founders of, you know, the civilization, Sumer and all those places, and how the people from the Caucasus Mountain, the Nephilims, come out the Caucasus Mountain and mix with them folks, you know, and that's gonna be, you know, the first Semitic people is gonna be the Nephilims mixing with them Amorites, and that produced the Semitic people. And that's, you know, they'll try to trick you, make you think that it's talking about Shem. But anyway, the people from Babylon, them Amorites, are responsible for Babylon's whole history, all the gods, Norajal, the Gilgamesh epics, Enili, the Anunnakis. All their history is coming back, and all them stories about them gods supposed to, you know what I'm saying, are starting to be spread around now today and be accepted and stuff, you know. And it's like those are the fallen angelic beings that was in Genesis that the Creator was against, that went into the daughters of man, you see. And then, you know, Cain gonna be, you know, kicked it with them folks, and they gonna be some non-pigmented peoples, you know, that had Tazarat on them. And them Amorites, you know, I got a video that showing how we abandon our heritage to the Jews. Okay, I got a video showing how the Amorites come in from the Caucasus Mountain, and then snuck on down, you know what I'm saying, around that coast, the Caspian Sea coast, and then got into the Zagros mountains and stuff. Them gonna be the mountains. You know, the Zagros mountains is gonna be where they can hide. And then if you look in Iran, in them parts, Man, they got underground cities where them folks lived in caves and underground. It's the same as when they lived in Turkey. Man, they got cities in Turkey where them folks lived up underground. The non-pigmented people lived up underground. Whole civilizations underground. They been on the quiet about that history, but it's starting to come out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But you can always research caves in Turkey, underground cities in Turkey. Well, that's going to be them Nephilims and them come up out of Cain descendants and them folks that mixed with them fallen angelic beings. They came up out the Caucasus Mountain and then went up into Turkey in them caves, and some of them, you know, snuck around to the Zagros and hid up in them caves, and then they'll go sneak up in Babylon. You know what I'm saying? And then them Sephardi's gonna be the first ones to mix up with them folks. Them Sephardic Jews, whose real name is Sephardim, are gonna be the first ones to mix up with them Nephilims and Raphalims and stuff. And that's them. That's them right there. Them the Amorites. Them the Amorites that had mixed up with them Nephilims and Raphalims. And them gonna be the people that was in Sodom and Gomorrah too. You know, when the Creator destroyed it, and then they fled and got on down. You see the Gutians and all them folks up in the, you know what I'm saying, up in the Zagros and man, up in the mountains, and then Babylon, where's the nation where the Gutians, the Kassites, and man, there's so many civilizations and peoples that came and lived in Babylon, and then they all mix. But the Amorites will be the chief amongst the mixed people. It's like when they all came and mixed in, they came in and mixed in with them Amorites, and them Amorites became their rulers. And the Amorites are the Sephardims, the Sephardi, the people we call Sephardi Jews. Those are the people we abandon our heritage to. And that's one of their main spots, Nippur, and then Sippur. Oh man, Sippur was where all the books and all the archives was, and Sippur is where they was at. The scribes, the people that's responsible for the whole Babylonians' God history before they was placed in our land. You know, Assyria had, you know, problems and falling out with them folks because, you know, they had that Tazarite like element to them, and they had mixed in with the Assyrians too, them Nephilims. And I got a video showing how the peoples come up out the Caucasus Mountain, and you know, King Midas and them came up out the Caucasus Mountain and kicked it into Syria, and then how they destroyed Assyria, and how them people, you know, the Scythians, Ashkenazi, got into Babylon, into Chaldea. And then I got videos showing that how Assyria was the founders of Chaldea and gave it what it had, and then them Scythians came and took it over. And then, you know, they started to work and destroy Assyria, and they eventually destroyed Assyria. You know, it's like I got videos showing our connections with the Assyrians and how we kicked it with them and did trade with them, and how those myths that they got out and about the 10 lost tribes being taken during the Syrian times to these mysterious lands, well, those are lies, and that's the power of the Babylonian scribes, the people that we abandon our heritage to. Okay, Hebrews, you know, I got enough videos, you know what I'm saying, about them folks, showing where they from and who they is. You just got to search them videos. This video here is about showing that the people from the transatlantic slave trade, the people from the transatlantic slave trade are the true Hebrew Israelites. And I can show how we are the Hebrew Israelites easy, because the Hebrews broke covenant during the Babylonian wars and then ran into Africa. Plain and simple as that. And then they can't change their history. You know, if you look at some of the comments on the videos that I got with those subjects and topics, and then you read that I done had a little debates with some of the Jews, and then how they'll try to say, well, in the Tanakh it say in the book of Jeremiah that they'll get destroyed. Yeah, we got destroyed, all right. And it also say that how we will be taken to another land, a strange land. So, the people who went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion never returned back to the promised land, just like the scriptures prophesies in the book of Jeremiah. But if you let them folks explain it, they'll try to twist it around to mean something else. But all this saying is that them people that went into Africa wouldn't return, and I can show you how, the whole Hebrew nation went into Africa and didn't return back to the promised land when the people who was taken to Babylon, that 1% that was taken to Babylon, you got prophets that recorded their history that we have right now today. That's the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those 5 prophets covered the exiles that went to Babylon and then come back home. These prophets here and that history, even the sister Esther, and then I got videos covering this too. I got videos covering, this history in detail about the exiles that come home from Babylon and how they wasn't reunited with the Hebrews that went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. That's like I show in all the videos how it wasn't no 10 lost tribes and how those are Jewish myths. Those are myths. And the Israelite Brotherhood don't do Jewish myths. We do real Israelite history. I'm showing us people descended from the transatlantic slave trade are the real Israelites. We are the Hebrews that the Tanakh spoke of that broke covenant in the book of Jeremiah. It's like I got videos explaining how we don't have no long history, no thousands of years in the promised land, and that I show that from the time that we exodus with prophet Moses to the time that we broke covenant, I calculate from the time of prophet Joshua, the leader Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim, and how he got us into the promised land, and we start to take on our inheritance, because prophet Moses couldn't come into the promised land. He passed away before we got a chance to get into the promised land. But how Joshua in 1375 BC, when he passed away, we was in the promised land, but we had started to fall off. And I can show you from the time that we got in the promised land to the time that we was kicked out during the Babylonian wars around about 588 BC, that it only represent us being in the promised land from the time we exited Egypt, getting in the promised land, 800 years. That we only got 800 years of history, showing that we was in the promised land, and that that 800 years is not enough to lead you to who we are today. Because the Amorites, the people who we abandoned our heritage to, those Sephardi Jews, when we abandoned our heritage to them, that they was Amorites, and that the promised land had been theirs for thousands of years before we Israelites was even the Hebrew nation. So, when we abandoned our heritage to them, and then that they was looking like the Israelites, because they was practicing our heritage, and there wasn't nobody to contest that they had got our heritage, because the civilizations that we interacted with, the Egyptians and the Assyrians, they was gone. The Babylonians, the people who could have recorded what happened to us when we went into Africa, they was the Sephardi's kinfolks. That was their people, so they wasn't gonna record what happened to the Hebrews that broke covenant and went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion. Like I say, that's one of the quietest kept history on the face of this earth, that the people who are responsible for Western history, Western civilization, didn't record that. They didn't record the Hebrews saying that they wanted to go live in Africa to do the Egyptian religion. It's like I got a whole bunch of history in the Tanakh that showed that we always wanted to return back to Africa anyway. Well, us returning, into Egypt, back into Africa, that's what caused our enslavement, because we had broke the covenant and we had abandoned the law. And then that caused down enslavement. And the law that we was supposed to get, the law that we had got was supposed to get rid of the Canaanite culture and the Egyptian culture, because we was in the middle of them and they couldn't connect if we was in the middle, and we stopped them from, you know, doing trade with each other and stuff. But we didn't do that. You know, we fell victim to the Amorite culture, which destroyed us. And that Amorite culture is what's destroying us today. You know, it's like I got a video showing how the tribe of Benjamin, when we was in the promised land, and how they was mostly in the Amorite held territory, and how the Amorites turned them out to gayness. You know, turned them out to gayness, the tribe of Benjamin, and how we had almost destroyed the whole tribe of Benjamin because of that stuff. We're the same people who turned the tribe of Benjamin out, and that promote male prostitution and male ritual prostitution and all that stuff are in control now today. And that's the culture that you get that's called America. You know, they the founders of America. Okay, now let's show how we people from the transatlantic slave trade are descendants of the Hebrew Israelites, and how ain't nobody but us that had went into Africa in abandoned covenant and was enslaved, that we still the Hebrews, no matter what they try to do. And the Creator even said that, you know, we will be mixed with beasts in the peoples, you know, our captors and stuff. And I can show all that as being true. Okay, let's go to the book of Jeremiah, because this need to be established off the top, and then I go and show was it no lost tribes, and then if it wasn't no lost tribes, and everybody ran into Africa, and then we was eventually enslaved, then man, that's elementary then, you know. Okay, if you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, Jeremiah chapter 44, and then you get to verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, you'll see that that was a state of mind. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her. That's that IS horror stuff. And as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. Now that's real wicked. That's real wicked, what we said and what we did. And we went into Africa saying that. We was on our way into Africa. Matter of fact, we was in Egypt when we said this to Prophet Jeremiah. And Prophet Jeremiah before then had, you know, caught up with us, and then tried to get us to stay in the promised land, because what had happened is, all right, after King Josiah cleaned up the Egyptian religion, them Egyptians don't come out. The Egyptians come out. You know, they was trying to help the Assyrians. It was called the satire history of Egypt, when the Assyrians placed the satire kings on the throne. They wasn't nothing but some West Africans. Those gonna be Ephraim's relatives, the Mishwish folks. That's all it is. The folks from the Sahara, from Lower Libya. You know what I'm saying? They got put on the throne, and they was helping the Assyrians. But King Josiah had cleaned the Egyptian religion up. Cleaned it up, the Amorite religion and the Egyptian religion. He cleaned it up. And it was a prophecy for him to do that going back 300 years before he did it. You know, it was prophesied for King Josiah to clean up the Egyptian religion around about 931 BC, when Jeroboam come out of Egypt with that mess. You know, King Solomon had chased him to Egypt. You know, when he found out that the Creator had gave him the kingdom, he chased him to Egypt. And Jeroboam stayed there a long time to Solomon's death. Man, probably about a good 40 years, 38 years. You know, Solomon reigned for 40 years. So Jeroboam, you know, probably about 2 or 3 years after Solomon on the throne, did he peep, you know, well, this was after he built the temple. So this is going to be, man, Jeroboam stayed in Egypt about 20 years to the death of Solomon. I'm going to show that. And then he come out. That's a long time for the Egyptians to persuade him and change him up. To change him up and do all kind of stuff to his mind. He was kin to him anyway. The tribe of Ephraim was kin to the Egyptians. And when we left Egypt the first time, some Egyptians left with us. And they would cause us to go to the Egyptian religion when Prophet Moses went up into the mount to get the covenant from the Creator, the new culture that would have extinguished the Egyptian and the Amorite culture that went from the Nile all the way to Mesopotamia. We would have got rid of it. And then when Prophet Moses come down, you know, we was on Egyptian religion. All right. Then we got on, you know, the Egyptian religion after, all right, we was enslaved quite a few times in Judges. You know, then Samuel, come on, Prophet Samuel come on. This is around about 1100 BC. And then, you know, we get King Saul, and then King David around about 10 BC. He was king over Judah and Israel. And then, you know, King David passed away and Solomon come on. And then when Solomon come on, man, Solomon turned wicked, and them folks tricked him. Them peoples tricked him, them Amorites and stuff. They gave him women, all kind of women, and he would abandon the covenant and sell out, you know, and destroyed us. You know, Solomon was wicked, and he wasn't no, you know, wise king like the Jews' history try to portray. You know, this let you know the power of the Babylonian scribes is that they gonna say Solomon was a wise man, and they done left that myth going ever since then to now, since they've been in control of the Israelite history and heritage. But if you look at the history of Solomon, you'll see that Solomon was wicked at the end, and that the women had changed his heart, and that the Creator was against him. And that's why the Creator gave the kingdom to Jeroboam. And then he tried to kill Jeroboam and chase Jeroboam into the Egyptians' hands. And then when Solomon passed away, Jeroboam come out and put the Egyptian religion on us. The golden calf ain't nothing but what the cross is to Christianity, no matter what the branch is. Well, that golden calf and that bull, the golden calf and the women's statues, all that represent Egyptian religion. You know, about 3 or 4 Egyptian religion combined into one, and those are the symbols for it. Okay, Hebrews, this guy here, he would kill King Josiah. That's Necho. After we was, you know, cleaned up from the Egyptian religion. And then they would kill him. And then he would put us back on the Egyptian religion, you know, through King Josiah's son, Jehoiakim, and them. You know, we would go back to the Egyptian religion. And I got videos how a prophet tried to take off and hide from Jehoiakim and went to Egypt. This prophet was telling this Jehoiakim and the people that the kingdom was going to get destroyed, just like Prophet Jeremiah said. Well, you know, this brother fled to Egypt, and the Egyptians turned him over. You know, let the wicked Hebrews come in there and bring him out and took him back to the promised land, and Jehoiakim and put him to death. But this is what we said going into Egypt, because we was doing a lot of wickedness, all the robbing and killing and stealing, and how we're against each other. Now it's the same as we was in the promised land. We were so wicked that we even went and made a vow. Everybody, you know, came to the temple and said, hey, we was going to stop robbing each other and doing each other wrong. And as soon as we left there, we went right back to our acts. You know, it's a whole bunch of acts in the book of Jeremiah and the stuff that we did, you know, that led up to us being chased out the land. And the Creator sent for the right people when he sent for Ashkenazi under the code name Skinty. When he sent for them folks to get us up off the land, it was over with. It was no recover, zero recover from dealing with them, because Ashkenazi is a war nation. Ashkenazi is a war nation, and Ashkenazi wasn't playing. And when the Creator gave them the green light, man, to get us, it was over with. It was over with. That's Ashkenazi right there, coming on them horses. And then they had them little bitty arrowheads. Them little bitty arrowheads. You know, this is what in the book of Jeremiah, when we was going into Africa and he was after us, is because these people came in with the Babylonians. You know, the Chaldeans wasn't nothing but Ashkenazi. And Ashkenazi code name is Scythian. And they destroyed Assyria, and then they was at us, and they had chased us off the promised land into Africa, and then they would be using them arrowheads. You know, I got a video going exclusively into this, explaining the different kind of arrowheads that they used against us and how they got us up off the land. You know what I'm saying? And then they shot so many arrowheads, arrows at us for saying that we wanted to worship the Egyptian religion that, you know, they still finding them today. You know what I'm saying? And Scythian arrowheads that ain't nothing but Ashkenazi arrowheads shoot up Jerusalem. Scythian trilobite arrowheads were found at Tel Megadim, Atlit, Medigo, Kissim, Quashnoma, Samaria, Tel Michael, Gezer, Tel Enabis, Jerusalem in the city of David, Katit, Hanam, and on the southwestern hill of Ashkelon, Ekron, Ashdod, Tel Batesh, Tel El Hassi, Lachish. Now we know Lachish got their mouth tore out. Them Hebrews in Lachish got their mouth tore out. Them gonna be the Hebrews that got took into Assyria. And you know, that's like, you know, why they don't have no DNA to reflect the people that look like that? Why come the DNA that they take today don't reflect the Hebrews, the relics that they took back in the days? And they was kind of accurate. You know, them people got some locks and stuff, some baby locks. And why come DNA don't represent that today? But the DNA that they tried to say that are connected to the Hebrews are all Caucasian looking folks. And it don't even represent these people that look like this. So something is up. And then I got, you know, history showing in the book of Jeremiah how the Creator said that once we got kicked up off the land, the bones and everything about us had to get up off the land. So you know that if we only got 800 years of history in the promised land, if we only got 800 years of history total from the time of Exodus in Egypt all the way to the time that we was driven out, and then we only got that little time, and then they dig the bones up and then kick the bones out, then it's nothing of us left there. So people be like, they can't be the Hebrews because there's no evidence. Well, the Creator got rid of all the evidence, and then the only evidence that you do have today is this history that the Israelite Brotherhood showing how we abandon our heritage to the Jews. Ain't no other Hebrew organization talking about this. Now they're gonna probably try to get on and try to take some of this credit, even though, you know, we ain't doing this. The Israelite Brotherhood ain't doing this for the Israelite Brotherhood's sake, but for the sake of all the Hebrews, so we can come into heritage and have something to fight with. It's time for them to see us as Hebrew Israelites. It's time for the enemies to see us as Hebrew Israelites. And the only way that the enemy is going to see you as a Hebrew Israelite is if you got correct history. You got to have correct history. And that's what I'm putting out. But this is why, you know, this is a trip how they DNA don't match them relics. The Latish relics is what it's called when the Assyrians took some Hebrews to you know what I'm saying, the fighting tribes to Assyria. They kidnapped the fruit people, and I'm going to show you the ones that they kidnapped, if I can squeeze all this little history in. You know what I'm saying? Well, why DNA don't match that? Why they DNA don't match that? And then this is what the Creator said Man, about some Hebrew DNA. At that time said the Elohim, this is Jeremiah chapter 8. At that time said the Elohim, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of their graves. And they shall spread them before the sun and the moon and the host of heaven, whom they have loved and whom they have served, and after whom they have walked, and after whom they have sought, and whom they have worshipped. And they shall not be gathered, nor be buried. They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth. So all the Hebrew bones with the Hebrews in the promised land, the graves, because we only buried ourselves where, you know what I'm saying, our father Jacob and all them was buried. Well, the Egyptians probably dug the graves up. It's a known fact. The Syrians dug the graves up. The Persians, the Babylonians dug the graves up. The Persians dug the graves up. The Greeks really dug them up. And then the Romans dug them up. Man, it wasn't nothing left. And they done scattered our bones, all them different empires and civilizations that moved into the promised land, not counting the 20 other nations that had moved into the promised land after it was empty for 50 years. You know, when the exiles come back home from Babylon, while we had ran into Africa, and then they was released by the Persians, because the Persians beat the Babylonians 538 BC. And when them Hebrews come back home, man, they could only live in Judah. You know, I got videos explaining this, how they could only live in a certain area, and then how they start mortgaging the land, and then how they start sinning and mixing with the folks. We got a whole list of the people that mix with the enemies, and they even had kids by them. Whatever caused the Greeks to come in and destroy them, because the Greeks destroyed the Persians. I got videos going into all this. So it's impossible for them devils to escape you with some true history that you can show now. You know what I'm saying? You can show now. Well, like I said, during the Babylonian wars, you know, we had said that we was going into Africa to live, and you know, and I was showing how prophet Jeremiah had chased us into Egypt, and then this is what we had said, because the Creator had told him that, you know, if you know, to tell us to come back to the promised land, and we said, no, we ain't coming back to no promised land, and that we going into Egypt to live. And like I said, Egypt ain't nothing but the Sahara. You know what I'm saying? And the boundary lines that you have of Egypt today are not the boundary lands nation. The boundary lands of their nation that exist in the past is not the same now. The League of Nations divided the whole Africa up. All them European folks divided the whole Africa up and then shuffled them around like a deck of cards. But Egypt borders went way over here. Way over here, man. You got baby pyramids way over here, and all these parts is where they plucked us at during the transatlantic slave trade and brung us to the west coast of Africa. That's like I had said, that them folks in West Africa had to be part of the people who they trying to say that we are kin to. This is how the enemy do us, and they've been doing us like this for a long time. They'll attach our heritage to some people that are not related to us, but the people that are actually destroyed us. You know, they'll try to make us seem like we the best friends. You know, like they got the people thinking that, you know, the Jews and the blacks are the best friends and don't suffer. But now, man, it's a terrible relationship that, you know, we got, and them folks are behind the conditions that we are living in, because they control the resources of this nation as well as the politics, you know. But anyway, let me get back on this here, on Jeremiah. Alright, this Jeremiah 43. And it come to pass that when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking unto all the people all the words of the Elohim their Yah, for which the Elohim their Yah had sent him to them, even all these words, then spake Azariah the son of Hoshea, and Johanan the son of Ker, and all the proud men, saying unto Jeremiah, Thou speakest falsely. The Elohim our Yah hath not sent thee to say, Go not into Egypt to sojourn. Like I say, Egypt borders are not the same as what it was in the past. When we were saying we was going into Egypt, you know what I'm saying, we were saying we was going into the Sahara. That's all we was saying we was doing. All right. Let me see. Y'all speaketh falsely. Our Elohim had not sent thee to say, go not into the land of Egypt to sojourn, but Baruch, the son of Ner, setteth thee on edge against us, for to deliver us into the hands of the Chaldeans, that they might put us to death and carry us away captive to Babylon. Okay, when those Hebrews went into Africa to live, that was the end of the history on them. That was the end of the history on them. We didn't take no scribes into Africa. We didn't take no scribes into Africa to record us doing an Egyptian African religion. It wouldn't have made no sense to have some priests of the Most High in Africa recording us doing Egyptian religion. It was over with. It was over with for us. We was done and cooked. See, we abandoned our heritage to the Jews, and then they was placed in our land in 722 BC. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24, you're going to see this word Sephardim. Sephardim. And Sephardim is the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. You know, and if you go to 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sephardim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. All right, and then as you read, you'll see that them folks was doing our heritage. You know what I'm saying, that we had in the northern kingdom. You know what I'm saying? All right. So they feared the Elohim and made unto themselves the lords of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Elohim and served their own God, same way they do now today, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away. You know, so, you know, them folks would try to follow our heritage, and then as you read to an end, so these nations feared the Elohim and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as they did, so did their fathers, so do they unto this day. And that's the truth, because they would take what they call Judaism that they created off our heritage, and they got all kind of old stuff associated with it, the Kabbalah and all that stuff, and that's gonna be that stuff that come from Babylon that they brung. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when we abandon our heritage to them Sephardims, to the Sephardims, 134 years after they was placed. You know, they was placed in 722 BC, and we went into Africa in 588 BC to worship the Egyptian religion. Okay, when we abandoned our heritage to them, they was responsible for the whole world history as you know then. You know, they was responsible for the whole Mesopotamian history, was the known world then. That was the world. That was the recorded world. The whole Mesopotamia area, Babylon, that was the whole world. And that's Western. You know, Amorite means Westerner. Well, them people we abandoned our heritage to was responsible for recording all the history. They recorded all the history for the Europeans and its families and its nations. You know, all their history go back to the Jews trading, the Sephardi's and Ashkenazi trading in Europe and developing those lands. You know, it's like I got this book from a Jewish rabbi. Where that book at? Let's see if I got that book somewhere close. I thought I had it close. Let me see that book. Max, yeah, this book right here. This book right here. Man, I got this book from a Jewish rabbi years ago, around by 1992. Max I. DeMont. You know what I'm saying? He'll tell you that the Jews single-handedly developed the whole European history and economy and gave them civilization as you know it today. You know, that they behind everything. You know, it's like they got these group of people called the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians, they from Italy, and they founded Venice, and all important places in Europe, you know, they're responsible for. And they're responsible for its money, its wealth, and everything. Okay, we abandon our heritage to them folks that are responsible for Western history. It's why our history didn't get wrote, and how it's, you know, them people ain't finna say that we the Hebrews, because they've been holding our heritage for so long. They've been holding our heritage for so long that they not finna say that we the Hebrews, and they don't want to put out no history showing that we the Hebrews. That's why it's by the grace of Almighty Yah that we able to put this history together and show that we abandon our heritage to them self-hardy Jews, and we could place everybody in our picture now. You know, there's no missing pieces. They all here now, you know, and we need to go hard on our enemies and show them that we are the Hebrews that broke the covenant in the book of Jeremiah, that went into Africa to do the African religions, and we was enslaved because of that. You know, and I'm going to go into some of the curses too. But you see, them folks had our heritage, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's us. How long we had it from 406 to 588 BC. 818 years. You know, the Sephardi's with our heritage from 722 BC to now is 2,740 years that the Sephardi folks held our heritage. And they say who is a Hebrew and who is not. They developed the whole history about who is a Hebrew and who is not. And that's going to be one of the main reasons why the Creator told us this. If you go to Jeremiah, you know, everything gonna be in the book of Jeremiah also, because he gonna be our last prophet. You know, that's why the Creator told us this. Behold, the days come, said the Elohim, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, said the Elohim. See, the reason we're going to have to get a new covenant that's not like the one that we had when we come out of Egypt is because the Babylonian scribes got our heritage, and you is not going to be able to get it from them. It's impossible. So that's why the Creator is giving us new, so we don't have to be upset about them folks got our heritage, because we can show how they got it, and we can show that the Creator said today, you know, we're going to get a new covenant, not like the one that we had in Egypt. So they stuck with some old stuff, and we're going to get some new. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, said the Elohim. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Elohim. I will put my law in their inward parts, and will write it in their hearts, and I will be their Yah, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, saying, know the Elohim, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, said the Elohim. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Now, you see that? How the Creator put our history and our new culture out of their reach. Because if it's inside us, then we don't need no books that they specialize in writing the history. You know, if it's in a book, they can get it and switch it around and make it mean something else. And then the very language that we speak English, they develop. So it got all kind of hidden words and meanings. So the Creator is smart to put our new covenant out of their reach. It's inside us. And that's why one of the reasons why the people, our enemies who got our heritage and don't want to turn it loose, got us so wicked and promote so much wickedness, because they know that it's in us. But if they can get you to be wicked from inside, then you might not connect to your Israelite heritage. You know what I'm saying? And they got so much wickedness going on today, man. It's just, it's awful. Man, they got Hebrews defend the enemies. Man, you got Hebrews that mix up with the enemies. And the Creator even said that. That's like I say, everything is in the book of Jeremiah. All praise be Almighty Yah. I'm right here on it. Behold, the days come, said the Elohim, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and with the seed of beasts. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's happening to them Hebrews now. They're sowing themselves with the seed of beasts. You know, and then, you know, we know that was a curse also when we will be taken to a strange land and be held in our enemies' hand, you know, to be captives in our enemies' hands. You know, that those are the curses that we inherited for breaking the covenant that Prophet Moses gave us, you know. And some of them curses, man, I'm talking about, man, they fit us to a T. I turned right to chapter 28 of Deuteronomy. Oh, please forgive me, Almighty, with this. I'm tape on this. I didn't use the Bible so much. Yeah, so, you know, some of the verses, you know, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard. You know, it was symbolic of the economy that we would, you know, be forced to work in, and how we would benefit none of it. And thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. You know, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and then eyes shall look and fill with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thee in hand. You know, oh man, it go on, and then this how you really know, you know what I'm saying? The Elohim shall bring thee and that king which thou shalt set over thee unto another nation which thou nor thy fathers have known, and thou shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all the nations where the Elohim shall lead thee. And that's a known fact that nigger, black, Negro, all them names done governed us, and they got history wrote with just them names. You know, that's like for about 30 years, 40 years, we was called Negroes. And before then, we was called coloreds. And they had books and history wrote up where that's what the only that they recognize us as some colored folks. And then some black folks, then Negroes, man, we done had so many names, all them curses, you know. And look, this showing enough the curse. And everybody can see this curse right now today. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Now, it's a known fact that I don't care where you at, folks from the Middle East and from South America and everywhere done took our whole neighborhoods over. And then when they get in our neighborhoods, they build walls. They put walls up, high fences, cut themselves off from the people in the community, showing they don't want no dealings with us. Well, our whole community is owned by strangers, and they lend to us. And we have come down very low. We don't own nothing. We messed up real bad. You know, and then these curses go on. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Elohim, thou Yah, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he command thee. And that's a known fact that when we ran into Africa, trying to get away from the Creator in the job that we was assigned to, that them curses followed us. You know, I got history showing that, you know, that our first derogatory name was Gramentian, and we stayed in Gert. Those are just names that the Greeks gave us when they came in to observe us. You know, it's like I say, you know, how them folks sent the missionaries in later on in Africa to convert them folks. Man, them Jews, them Babylonian scribes were so slick with doing that, because as they passed the Bibles around and created Bibles in Christianity and passed them around into all these lands and civilizations, you got all these lands and civilizations thinking that the Jews are the Israelites. From the missionaries passing them Bibles out everywhere, all over the earth, spreading them everywhere. And then the Jews, we abandon our heritage to them. Man, that was like a prize for them. And then they got all them Bibles teaching the Israelite heritage and to believe in God, or even that fake God son stuff that they done created, and that still expose you to biblical history. Then them Jews got all their power from that. You see, they was Babylonian scribes, and they knew how to set up schools to teach the history that they teach, because they are scribes and wrote the history, and then they create schools to teach their history that they wrote. And then them folks fell in love with the Jews, and they created Bibles, had presses and created Bibles, and then passed them into all them lands everywhere, forced people to get on Christianity, forced it on them. And then guess what? When them people read about the Jews in Israel, the first thing they think about is the Sephardi and Ashkenazi, and they think that they are the Israelites, because them people didn't record the real Israelites going into Africa to get away from the covenant that we were supposed to do, and how we went into Africa to live, to our enslavement, which translated into the transatlantic slave trade. The only time the people have been taken to Africa, taken from Africa to a strange land and dogged out and taken to some other nations and fulfilled all the curses the prophet Moses said would happen. You know, so we are the Hebrews, you know, and I show you that them Hebrews in them other videos. Also, I show that us Hebrews that went into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and how we never returned back home, and how we never came back home when the exiles come back from Babylon. That 1%, us that said that we was going into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion, we didn't never come back home. We didn't never come back home. We didn't never come back home to be reunited with these folks right here. So that's a done deal. You know, that's a done deal. And the devil can't go back and change and try to create some history and say, well, this happened to the Israelites when they was in Africa. They all went down a hole or something. You know, they'll come with something real crazy. They'll say that the Israelites went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. A spaceship got them. They'll come with all kind of old crazy stuff, but we ain't going for that. And we gonna push this history real hard, because there's no history to counter this. I done searched for, man, I got 70,000 hours of continuous research on top of 20-something years of researching and studying biblical history. And guess what? They ain't got nothing. This done snuck in on them real good. Our captivity got to be coming to an end, because this is plain and easy to see. And there's no other history besides this. When them Hebrew organizations be trying to teach how we the Hebrews, all they gonna be doing is using Jewish myths. They either gonna come off that 70 AD, saying that we ran across Africa in 70 AD because Herd Edomite temple was destroyed. And it wasn't no refurbished temple. It was her Edomite temple built from the ground up. You know, I got videos going into all this. The Israelite Brotherhood cover all aspects and angles dealing with this history. We ain't letting them get away. They cannot get away. That's why come you Hebrews need to subscribe and tell other Hebrews to watch these videos. I even listen to the videos. After I finish speaking, I listen to these videos all day, every day. I don't even watch TV. I don't even listen to no music and no radios. I listen to these Israelite Brotherhood videos. And that's how come I got a complete understanding of our heritage. You see what I'm saying? When we went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion during the Babylonian wars, that when the exiles, the little 1% that was taken to Babylon, and when they come back home, that they wasn't reunited with the ones that went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion. You know, hundreds of years had passed by. Hundreds of years had passed by. So, you know, it was over with. Ashkenazi, Scythians, Sephardim, Sephardic, and Sephardim Jews. That's the Jewish groups. Those are the people we abandoned our heritage to for the Egyptian religion. You know, and that's what the whole book of Jeremiah is about. He's going to be our last prophet for the 99%. You know, he's going to be our last prophet for the 99%. And, man, it's a must read. You know, but when those Hebrews went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, we stayed there till the transatlantic slave trade started. Them Hebrews stayed there till the transatlantic slave trade started. They didn't go dipping up into no Europe. They didn't go to no Asia. They didn't go to no China. And then I show you how it was impossible for us to have came to the Americas. You know, it's like one Hebrew be having a hard time with the people, with the natives that want to be Hebrews. You know, because some of the Hebrew organizations then gave the natives a pass to claim a Hebrew heritage because they be using Jewish myths. They don't know no real Israelite heritage. But I showed that it was impossible for Hebrews to be in the Americas because we had axles and wheels. That's a culture that you can't unlearn. It's impossible to unlearn it. You know, when we knew how to make wheels, and you cannot have a wheel without an axle. And we had axles, wheels, houses. We had brick houses. We had houses just like you got now. Today come from the houses that we had in the past. We had brick houses. We had brick houses, and it's impossible for them folks in the Americas to have been Hebrews, because, you know, none of the culture that we had in the Promised Land was in Americas. You know, to the Sephardi Jews came with the conquistadors and stuff, and when they came with the conquistadors, then they brung the wheel and the chariot and a whole bunch of other stuff. But before then and stuff, they didn't have none of that. So we know no Hebrews was in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade, and that those are lies. And like I say, you know, how we got them folks against the wall is all we got to do is show that we are the Hebrews that ran into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, saying that we was going into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. Ain't nothing can change that. There's no history to counter that. It's zero history to counter that, because that's what happened. That's actually what happened. That's the only history that we got that can show that we are Hebrews, is if you use the book of Jeremiah showing that we went into Africa during the Babylonian wars to worship the Egyptian religion, and how we never returned back to the Promised Land, and how we was eventually enslaved for that. And that translated into the transatlantic slave trade. You know, and us Hebrews was taken, you know, everywhere, all in South America. That's like if you are a descendant of the transatlantic slave trade, and you can trace your ancestry back to the slaves that was brung here during the transatlantic slave trade era, then you are a Hebrew Israelite. You are a Hebrew Israelite, because it was those Hebrews that ran into Africa that was eventually enslaved. And it's like this brother named Tony Martin. He gives up the goods on the Jews' participation in the slave trade. It's a documented fact that they controlled it. You know, it's in the Tanakh, it'll tell you how Ashkenazi had his hands deep in selling folks and you know, slavery and enslaving folks and stuff. You know, that's in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38. You know, he tell you how Ashkenazi, that was, you know, what they did, and that's how they got down. Well, them folks enslaved us, the people we abandoned our heritage to, and they was really kind of smart to enslave us, because if we abandon our heritage to them and then they enslave us and then brainwash us, then there's no chance. They was hoping that it was no chance of us getting our history back, or that it'd be so long, about 400 years before you did get your history back. You see, and that's what we're going through now. But the Hebrews are prolonging our coming into glory by using Jewish history, and they need to understand this history that I'm showing, that we are the Hebrew Israelites because we are the Hebrews that broke the covenant in the book of Jeremiah, and how, you know, we was enslaved for that. And it's plain to see all the history in the Bible lead up to that, lead up to us now. So it's no gap in between. It's no gap in between. It's a continuous history from the time that we exodus Egypt to breaking the curses, breaking the covenant and getting the curses and being enslaved now, is a continuous history. Alright, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. You have to show in the book of Jeremiah how we the Hebrews, and they can't defeat it. They can't touch it. It's untouchable history. It's when they say, well, ain't nothing impossible, it's impossible to show that the Hebrews didn't run into Africa and then that was eventually enslaved. That's us. Our history is identical to the curses. You know, that's some of the Hebrews don't even know the history and then just read the curses and know we've been messed up like that and then understood their heritage just from reading the curses. They ain't even have to know no Hebrew history. All they did was read the curses and knew instantly that we're the Hebrews. That's like one time I was reading the Bible years ago. Years ago. Man, this had to be around by 88. No, this was in 91. I was reading the Bible. I was off in one of them places and I was reading the Bible, and then I got to Deuteronomy. And then I knew instantly who the Hebrews was after reading them curses, the blessings and the curses. I knew instantly that we was the Hebrews, but I didn't have the history that I have today. And I done read the Bible 4 or 5 times since then, and it just didn't, click. But then all of a sudden, the Creator just opened my eyes, and I see clearly what happened to us. And that's how I'm able to get this message off to you Hebrews. And you have to show other Hebrews too, and then tell them to watch these videos. They gonna learn their heritage. I got history that's easy to understand. Shalom Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. We are the Hebrews. We are the Hebrews from the Transatlantic slave trade. That's a done deal. They can't do nothing about that because the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars and never returned home. We are them. We are them. We got enslaved for that. We got enslaved for that. Breaking that covenant. That lets you know that the Creator is real and that the Tanakh is real. See, that's why they have to keep us throwed off, because if you see that the Tanakh is real and that it's some real Israelites that's up under the conditions that the Tanakh, the Bible say that they will be in, then you gonna know that it's a real Creator. And that's what they don't want. See, because they power come in you not having disbelief. You see what I'm saying? They got their power off our disbelief. So they power come from us being in disbelief. And we take our power back from them when we start believing in the Creator. Shalom Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. The people from the Transatlantic slave trade are the Hebrew Israelites. Shalom.